Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dancing Italian Urban Farm, or welcome if you are new. My name is Leslie, and today we're making sourdough discard biscuits. I will link the recipe that I kind of used as a guide for this in the description box below if you are interested. Sourdough discard biscuits are a great way to use up sourdough discard. I also make sourdough discard pancakes as well. But today we're making biscuits. So what I am doing here is I am measuring out my sourdough discard. You need 1 cup of discard. I am measuring out 2 cups of discard and then a whole cup of milk. If you're only doing one batch, a single batch, you just need half a cup of milk. Like I said, I'll link the recipe below. But I'm measuring out my discard and my milk, and I mix those together, and I'm just going to set that aside while I get my dry ingredients together. So in my large bowl here, I am going to put in 4 cups of flour. And this is just an organic all-purpose flour that I'm using here. And then to that, I am going to add 2 tablespoons of baking powder. And then a half a teaspoon of baking soda. And then I'm going to add half a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to mix that together, get my pastry cutter and kind of mix that together a little bit. And then I'm going to cut in 8 ounces of salt. Now I'm using salted butter because that's what I had. But the recipe does call for unsalted butter. But I only used half the amount of salt I should have. So it all balances out in the end. But this is 8 ounces or an entire stick of butter in these biscuits. What do you need? Oh, you need to look at the recipe. My cat Loki is helping me with the voiceover, apparently. Anyway, once I get the butter in there, I am going to cut the butter into the flour until it kind of gets pea-sized. You want the chunks of butter to be pea-sized. Wow, I could not think of that to save my life. I'm just using a regular eating fork, dining fork, to kind of help scrape off as I cut this butter into this flour. Scrapey, scrapey. And then cutting some more. This does take a bit of time, this process of cutting the butter in. But that's what makes those biscuits so light and fluffy. All right, once you've got the butter cut in, you're going to add your milk and sourdough starter. Now, I started off by adding only about half of my liquid, and then I mixed it in with my fork, and I did wind up adding all of my liquid, but you may not need all of it. It depends on a lot of things. A lot of factors go into baking. So you just kind of want to add it in a little bit at a time and just kind of gauge how wet your dough is and how wet or dry your dough is, and then adjust accordingly. Like I said, I did wind up adding all of my liquid. It was just a really dry day that day, and it just required all of that liquid. Normally, I don't add all of my liquid because I live in Mississippi, and it's usually very humid here. So, but anyway. You'll see here in a minute I'm going to switch from that fork to my hands and just kind of finish mixing all of that together with my hands, because, you know, they're the best kitchen tool you have. And just kind of get all of that dry flour mixed in with all of that yummy, delicious sourdough starter. And then once you get that all mixed together, we are going to cook these. And the way I cook biscuits is in a cast iron skillet. That's the way my mama did it. That's the way my grandmama did it. That's the way my great grandmother did it. So that's the way I do it. I'm going to use a cookie scoop to measure out my biscuits, and I'm just going to do a drop biscuit. You can roll out this dough. In fact, it has instructions on how to do that in the recipe that I'll link for you. You can roll it out. I just chose to do drop biscuits because to me it's easier and it's quicker to do it that way. Anyway, here comes my cast iron skillet. And I'm just going to kind of wipe it. I think I had just, I had washed it and then re-seasoned it a little bit. That's what it was, re-oiled it. So I'm just going to drop these biscuits by the scoopful into my cast iron skillet. And then I'm going to put them in the oven and I'm going to bake them. I am going to bake them at 400 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. You want to check them after 15 minutes. You want them to be golden brown on the top. Yeah, it's a fairly quick and easy recipe to do. They don't take a long time. Now, if you do decide to roll them out, that does take a little bit longer than doing drop biscuits. But drop biscuits will turn out just as lovely and delicious as rolled out biscuits will. You just won't have the flaky layers. Anyway, I've lost the footage of me putting them in the oven, but this is me taking them out of the oven. And there we go. And then here is the top of my biscuits. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Ring that bell if you want to be notified, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.